Every so often, a story comes to us that we know must be told without delay. One that will linger in your thoughts long after the final word is spoken. As always, we advise discretion. And if you're sensitive or easily affected by suggestion, this may not be the story for you. But if you're ready, these are stories of the night. I've heard people say that all stories start the same, but I truly don't know where to begin. Because this experience, it never really ended. It stayed with me for 12 years. With me, with my family, and with people who never asked to be involved. To tell it properly, I can't start in 2013, when everything began for me. I have to go much further back, to the late 1980s, to a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of Vatican City, where my grandmother lived. My mother's family had always been deeply involved in church affairs. My grandmother, especially, was close to the clergy. She was known by name at several Roman parishes, often seen sweeping the pews or preparing simple meals for visiting priests. But that life of service hadn't always been hers. It began after she lost her husband, and her children grew up. With only a small pension left to her name, she began volunteering, giving what she could to the church and to anyone in need. One afternoon, during a catechism lesson she was giving to a group of young girls at a nearby chapel, a man stumbled through the door. He was clearly not from the city, dusty, exhausted, and desperate, asking if there was a priest available. My grandmother, seeing his condition, didn't hesitate. She ran to find the parish priest, thinking there had been a terrible accident, someone in need of last rites. She told the girls to offer the man some water and wait. As she exited through the rear courtyard of the chapel, she looked up the stone path that led toward the Vatican Gardens. It was a favorite place for priests to retreat in silent prayer. And that's when she saw the woman. At the far end of the path, standing still against the breeze, was a figure in black, a woman with long white hair flowing down her back. The wind blew it forward, covering her face. My grandmother didn't recognize her, but she immediately felt something unnatural. Despite the fear prickling her skin, she began to walk toward the figure. The closer she got, the heavier the air around her became. The skies had begun to darken, though the day was still young. Then she heard her name, shouted behind her. She turned to see the young priest emerging from the chapel, the catechism girls following behind him. She turned back, but the woman had already vanished. Who was that woman? The priest asked, staring at the now empty path. I don't know, Father, my grandmother replied, shaken, but she wasn't from around here. Back inside, the stranger explained his story. He came from a remote village in southern Italy, a place forgotten by time. The local priest there had refused to help him. He had traveled town to town for weeks, seeking someone, anyone, with spiritual authority. He begged for an audience. The priest granted him a short meeting behind closed doors. When he emerged, the priest looked pale. I'm sorry, he told the man. I can't help you. This goes beyond me. Perhaps call the authorities. The man broke down. There are no authorities where I'm from, he cried. There's nothing left. He turned and walked away. The priest watched in silence. But my grandmother, moved by something she didn't understand, ran after him. The donkey he had left outside was barely able to carry weight, so she caught up to him quickly. Son, she said, tell me what's happening. Let me help. I can't, he replied. I have to keep going. There's no time. But my grandmother, who had never been reckless in her life, felt something stir in her soul. For the love of Christ, son, she said, I swear before God I will help you." The young man stopped in his tracks. "If you truly mean that, come with me. To my village. Maybe if you see it for yourself, you'll understand." She didn't want to ride his donkey. It looked like it would collapse any moment. So she brought him back to the priest and begged him for transport. The priest reluctantly handed them the keys to the parish van. They drove south, hours through the hills, and then deeper into the rural countryside. The roads thinned until the village appeared, just a handful of crumbling homes scattered near an old Benedictine ruin. The skies were still black, though it was barely late afternoon. "My home is up that trail," the man said. "The van won't make it." They walked the last half-kilometer. The village disappeared behind them. My grandmother described a dreadful loneliness, a sense of abandonment, even by God. They reached a small wooden house lit only by a single oil lamp hanging over the door. "We're here," the man said. Inside, an old woman lay slumped on the ground. "She needs help," the young man told my grandmother. "And if you don't believe me, wait until you meet my sister." The old woman whispered, "She's gone again, to the cemetery." Without another word, the young man bolted into the night. My grandmother followed, her body aching but her resolve firm. They reached the hillside cemetery, and then the screaming started. First one voice, then another, then several more, all women, crying out in eerie harmonic sync. It sounded like a chant, a dirge. She saw a young woman running toward the cemetery gates, and ahead of her another figure, naked, clawing at a grave with her bare hands. The man tackled the figure. My grandmother tried to run, to help, but she couldn't move. Her body felt frozen. Her mouth wouldn't open to pray. The boy dragged the woman back, unconscious now. "Don't stay behind," he yelled to my grandmother. "And for God's sake, don't turn around." She didn't. She helped him carry the girl. The screaming behind them grew louder. Back at the house, they laid her on a makeshift bed. "She's not my daughter anymore," the old woman whispered. "Something speaks through her now. The witches, they come every night. They want to make her pregnant with the devil's child." The dog outside barked furiously. My grandmother looked out the window, and standing on the road, not 20 meters away, was the same woman from the Vatican path, long white hair, black dress, still, watching. "She wants to take them," the young man muttered. "She's not done." What followed is fragmented. No one in my family agrees on the details, but they all agree on this. My grandmother came back the next morning saying the girl needed an exorcism. No one believed her. No one. Until the young priest from her parish quietly gave her a contact. A name. "Find Father Lucas," he said. "He used to work inside the Vatican. He's not listed anymore." My aunt helped her track him down a few days later in a quiet Roman neighborhood. They found an old Italian man, no longer wearing clerical robes, living in a tiny flat that smelled of paint and linseed oil. "I haven't been a priest in over 30 years, he told them. "I left after what I saw in the Vatican. I paint now. It keeps me sane, but I know why you've come." He listened to her story and then sighed. "I'm too weak now. I wouldn't survive a full ritual. But I can give you something." He pulled a small wooden box from a drawer, unlocked it, and removed a crucifix. "This," he said, "is the most powerful relic I ever used. It's seen the devil more times than I'd like to count. It's been passed down from exorcist to exorcist for generations." He placed it in my grandmother's hands. "Never destroy it. No matter what happens, keep it safe. One day, it will be your responsibility to pass it on." That was the last anyone saw of Father Lucas. My grandmother returned to the village with the crucifix, and with the young priest from her parish, they visited the girl's home every night. No formal ritual was done, but over time, the girl came back to herself. My grandmother never told us what they did. She took that knowledge to her grave. But before she died, she made one final request to my mother: never leave the crucifix behind. She had donated the little house to the church to turn into a retreat for orphan children, but the crucifix had to go far away, far from Rome, far from temptation. My grandmother passed away on July 16th, 2013, nearly 90 years old. We buried her. Days later, we returned to the little Roman flat. The moment my mother opened the door, holding that small wooden box, the lights inside exploded, all of them, at once. That's when we knew. Darkness had found us again.